Each of the Sundays that are part of Advent have a title to them: Hope, Peace, Tonight is Joy. It's interesting that we're talking about joy in the 11th chapter of Matthew, verses 2 through 11. Once again, John the Baptist and Jesus are the primary figures in the story. It seemed to be going so well between John the Baptist and Jesus in the 3rd chapter of Matthew. In the wilderness, John the Baptist said, "There is one to come. I'm not even worthy to untie his sandal. He will baptize you with fire and with the Spirit." John was the messenger pointing to Jesus. But in the 11th chapter of Matthew, things have profoundly changed. And I guess the issue is, where do we discover joy in this passage? John the Baptist is not in the wilderness. He's in prison. Herod, the Jewish governor of Galilee, had imprisoned John. John had heard about what Jesus was doing. He sent some of his disciples. John actually had disciples. There were people who were baptized by John and who were a part of John's church, not Jesus. And they came to Jesus and they asked him an interesting question, a powerful question. Are you the one, or will we have to wait to find the one who is coming? In other words, Jesus, are you really the Messiah? Are you really the Christ of God? We had expected so many things, and they haven't happened. We were looking forward to getting rid of the Roman rule. We were looking forward to the day that all who were sick would be well. And we want to know, are you the one, or are we to look for another? Jesus looked at John's disciples and he said, I want you to go to tell John some of the things that I've done. For example, he says, I have opened the eyes of the blind so that they can see. I have opened the ears of the deaf so that they can hear. Other things that Jesus said to John's disciples, I want you to take these things back to John, and I want you to tell him, I am the Messiah. What is happening in this story is, what happens when you and I expect something to be a certain way, and it doesn't work out the way that we expected. So many of the Jews thought Jesus was going to be the liberator of the Jews in Palestine. Not just some people can see, not just some people can hear, but Jesus, why don't you just take your hand and sweep it across the entire population so that everybody can see, everybody can hear, everybody will know you are the Christ, the Messiah. It is in the expectations that we have that oftentimes we find ourselves discouraged because things don't work the way that we had expected. Jesus said, I am not the Messiah who will bring an end to all of the turmoil in this world. I am not the Messiah in this coming who will end all the suffering in the world. I want you to understand that. I want you to know. I want you to understand that until God is ready to bring the curtain down on the history of this world, there will be suffering. Jesus, why don't you go into the prison where John is? He's your cousin. He's your friend. Why don't you just bend the bars and set him free? But John, in a few chapters, was beheaded by Herod. Jesus, why don't you do some of the things that we would like for you to do? We live in a world that is so fragmented, a world that is hurting, a world where there are so many mass shootings, a world where climate change is threatening the world. Jesus, why don't you just put your hand on it and change all of it? I remember when I was pastor in Charlotte, I had a call one night about 9 o'clock. I could tell difficulty. Dr. Bugg, we're here at the hospital and we need for you to come. I went to the hospital as quickly as I could. A beautiful young couple in our church, as fine people as you will find. And their baby was born, stillborn. What do I say? Well, you know, these things happen in people's lives. You know that we sometimes are disappointed by what happens. We know that it rains on the just and the unjust. Is that what I say to this couple who are grieving the loss of a child? This is no time to talk. It is time for us to put our arms around each other and through the tears to pray for the strength of God in the disappointments of our lives. Diana Butler Bass says in her book, Searching for Jesus, that we spend our lifetime trying to understand who this Jesus is for us. Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote a very famous book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. The honest story of his own life. Aaron, diagnosed at 3 with a degenerative disease, progeria. And 2 days past his 14th birthday, in the arms of his mother, Aaron died. Kushner wrote this book and he said, I can't believe God is both good and powerful. So I choose to believe that God is good and not all powerful. When we said our prayer at supper, as our family was growing up, I still remember God is great, God is good. Maybe Harold Kushner, maybe he has a point in terms of reason, but there are some things that are beyond reason. And I choose to believe that this God is both great and good. That's what brings me the joy in my life. It's not that all problems are gone, but in the depth of my heart, in the preaching that I have tried to do, I deeply believe God is great, God is good. We don't understand it all, but that's the reason why we have the presence of God to give us strength for the journeys of our lives.